Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show, and this is probably the third kind of extra surprise Gigawatts we've done in the last week or so, because we keep seeing things, and we're like, hey, we should do a review on that. And this one is a movie that hit Netflix. It hit Netflix in Japan last year, because it's a Japanese original.
I think it had a theatrical release in Japan.
Oh, did it? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But it is a Netflix original produced movie. So Netflix have the worldwide rights, and they hit this month. This is Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. Now, of course, if you're paying attention to our 121 in Flux episodes, what me and Connor do with older movies, you'll know that we're working our way through the classic Godzilla films. And we specifically did not do Shin Godzilla, or Resurgence, as it's also known, because we're waiting until we get there. You're going through the 20.
Part of that series, yeah.
Going through the 28 movies, we've done 7 so far, I want to say. And if you have been watching those and you're thinking, oh, it's been a while since that last one, Hebera, don't worry, or Ibera, sorry, not Hebera, Hebera. The next one's coming soon. That's scheduled in the next couple of weeks, so that's coming up. Yeah. But this is the first of an animated trilogy, and somehow, despite the fact that the Godzilla franchise has been around for 60 years almost, yeah, we're hitting the 20s, so yeah, soon. So yes, almost 60 years. They have never actually, is it close to 70? Oh yeah, it'll be 70.
What was the first one?
54. So it'll be 70 in 2024.
So we're at like 65.
Aye. Yeah, there you go. I don't know why we try and do math quickly on shows, because we're terrible at it.
We are awful.
But the point is, over half a century at Godzilla, and somehow they never did an animated movie until now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Shin Godzilla, because it was the success of that determined this. This was going to be an anime series, and that being a success, they decided, no, we can make movies out of this instead. Interesting.
But which is funny, because it's the exact opposite that happened with Castlevania, if you saw our TV reviews of that. But this, interestingly though, is billed as a trilogy right from the start, and even the way it's worded in the Netflix menus is kind of confusing, because it's...
Yeah, like, Netflix kind of classifies it as a TV show. It comes up as episode 1, part 1.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't quite understand it, but... especially since it sounds like there's a part 2 of episode 1, when that's not really what it means. It just means episode 1 is called part 1. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we know we're expecting the next ones later this year.
At least the next one. I don't know from both of them, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the original plan was that. I mean, maybe they've slipped.
This wouldn't surprise me, but yeah. So this is the first of a trilogy as an animated movie, and it is the first Godzilla animated movie. And what is obviously we'll start spoiler free, as we always do, and then we'll go into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and we'll warn you about it. But so the premise of this is that, again, this is outside of the live action movies. It's not connected to those. Godzilla and monsters at the end of the 20th century, which particularly I caught my eye. I was like, oh, 20th century, not like present day. They specifically said no, it's the end of the 20th century.
Slightly early.
Yeah. Basically started to take over the Earth. The humans realised they couldn't win. Some aliens who'd already kind of had the world destroyed showed up to kind of help. And they look pretty human as well. They're not like super different.
Humanoid, yeah.
Yeah. And basically the plan then becomes to evacuate as many people as possible in this big ship and look for other planets that they can inhabit.
Yeah.
And we actually pick up the story 20 years later, and basically resources are running slim. They've not found a planet yet. The ship's still just sort of floating through space. They've not get much hope. Things are getting quite dark.
Yeah, I think they say there's like 8 years of this rationing before then it's unsustainable.
Yeah, some people are getting suicidal. They're talking about jettisoning the elderly people, so there's less people to feed. There's dark times. But our main character, Haruo, is basically got this grudge because he was a kid. We get a flashback with him as a kid as he was being evacuated. So he was like 5 or 6 or whatever during the evacuation. Now he's in his 20s, and he's got this plan. Now we need to go back and fight Godzilla. We need to go back and take the planet back. And because they're so screwed in terms of supplies, things kind of work out that going back's kind of almost the best option anyway, in the hopes that we can somehow take the planet back. So it's this ship turning around, going back to Earth, and because of time differences, because of
they've been going faster than light.
Exactly. Earth has been there. It's been at least 10,000 years in Earth time since they left, even though for them it's been 20 years. So they come back and, things are different. And naturally they want to try and locate and possibly fight Godzilla, even though, as they establish in the flashback, Godzilla withstood 150 nuclear bombs at the same time.
Yeah.
That's how you sell your bad guy. 150 nuclear bombs couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, no, that's a lot.
One's a lot. Surviving one nuke's pretty notable.
Well, I mean, it is, but when you think Godzilla, one nuke, okay, fine. I don't know. It doesn't seem that impressive, but 150, that's a lot.
I think one nuke's still pretty... I know he's big compared to a human being, but he's not that big that one nuke's just a fly in the shoulder. Yeah, he's what, 300, 400 feet tall, something like that.
Was he that big?
Yeah. In fact, I think at one point they say 300 meters specifically. So.
Okay.
Which is actually a lot of feet. Now I think about it.
I can't really fathom what 300 feet looks like.
In the 2014 movie,
yeah,
he was 350 feet, I believe, if I recall correctly. So
cool.
So you can think of that next to the buildings. You can kind of
no, that helps.
You get a sense of how big that is. So this one's bigger apparently. If we're going to be 300 meters, that's bigger. So he's huge, freaking huge, and that's the premise. So I guess I'll ask the question: did you enjoy Godzilla: Planet of the Monsters?
Mostly. It's got some flaws. Last 10 minutes are fantastic.
Okay.
But mostly.
Okay, interesting. Well, here's the thing, right? So I'm not a big anime guy.
Yeah.
Right? Generally speaking. And I do think this movie rears a couple of the problems that I associate with anime. Namely, I think the characters are really, really thin, and I couldn't name... I couldn't name you any of them, really. Except for the fact that I looked up what the main character's name was, just so that I could refer to him when we were talking about him. And there's other characters that have dramatic moments. There's a dramatic death at one point, and I'm like, okay, who was that guy? I have no idea.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, not a clue. I had no clue who that was. Yeah. That said, I will say it looks pretty much gorgeous the entire time. It is a very pretty animated film.
Interesting, because I think the monsters look a bit funny at times, and I think the human faces have some issues. But all the ships, the environments look utterly gorgeous.
The ships are the best part. I will concur with that. The human faces in anime, I can sometimes have a problem with the whole pointy nose syndrome. This wasn't as severe in that regard. They were a bit more.
No, it wasn't. But the drawing of them in that sense is kind of pretty toned down.
Yeah, a bit more. Yeah, less pointy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but rounded is the word.
Rounded, yeah, but less pointy. So it's not that I like it round, it's that I like it pointy.
It's very specific.
Stupid pointy noses and pointy chins. This is unnatural. I actually kind of liked how Godzilla looked. I get what you mean by saying it was a difference to him, but it was there was a hulking appearance to him. He felt so slow and kind of...
It's the movement feels a bit juttery, I think, at times compared to the others. Like the ships are so smooth. But, the monsters sometimes felt like they were a bit jagged.
Strangely, I kind of liked that. I liked how different he felt. Like, he moved differently. Fair. He felt otherworldly compared to everything else. I kind of like that. Because, obviously, this interpretation of Godzilla is like, no, he is a villain. He's the worst of the worst. He would kill other monsters. He'd kill buildings. He'd destroy everything. He was just wrecking everything. Yeah. Now, admittedly, I am quite fond of a more heroic or neutral Godzilla, who isn't vindictive or evil. He just I really like when they go a bit more heroic with them. I kind of like that vibe, but basically because it's kind of that thing with they almost started doing with the slasher movies where most people are kind of rooting for Jason eventually in the Friday the 13th movies. I like that with Godzilla they kind of just acknowledge that. I'm like, you know what, Godzilla's a good guy. Like, we're going to actually have him fight the bad guys.
No, I'm fine with that as well. I think that's fun. I think this is works for this take though, to have him as the villain.
It does. And you've got this human who has a real grudge against him. He's like, no, we gave everything up when we evacuated, we ran. To regain the hope of humanity, we have to kind of like prove to ourselves that we're good enough. So that's
it's kind of point of pride rather than just clearing the monster.
Yeah, and honestly, I do think he's a flawed character in that I mean, I say flawed. I don't mean flawed in writing. I mean flawed in the sense that, I mean, it is flawed in writing as well because he's very thin. But he's flawed in the sense that it does feel like this is more about a personal grudge than it is about.
Oh yeah, he's trying way too hard for this.
Because
there's points where superiors will be like, no, hey, this doesn't make sense. Let's do this instead. And he's like, no, we're taking him down.
He makes choices that don't regard anything else. He doesn't care about anything else. At one point when they're on the planet again, and it's like, okay, we have to try and get off now. He's like, no, we sacrifice all of our getaway ships in the fight against Godzilla because what's the point of leaving? This is our home. We're not leaving. It's everyone else like, no, well, we should probably go back to the ship. No, we're not leaving. So that's the thing. But no, it's very atmospheric, and the animation looks pretty good. I like the opening when it's like the ship going towards the sun and all that stuff. I really quite liked. And like you say, a lot of the action stuff later on, it's got very smooth. Like they all have these like hover bikes that they're all kind of zooming around on, and most of that works really well. I thought some of the wide shots. This is something that I think a lot of animation doesn't quite handle, is when you do like a big wide shot like this and you can actually see the bikes like going round Godzilla, and it actually feels like there's like a proper curve going on in there, and there's motion to it.
There's depth.
Yeah, there's depth. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So, so I approve of that. As much as I'm typically not the anime guy, I actually think the animation in this is generally pretty good.
No, it's definitely not bad. I have some personal problems, but it's more just taste rather than it being bad animation.
I mean, it's probably my favourite part of the movie because, like I say, I think the characters are really thin.
No, the characters are probably the worst part of the movie. I think there's a lot of really nice ideas in the movie that it kind of plays with. The way it treats Godzilla specifically, I really like. The ideas it brings up around him, which I'll talk about more in the spoilers. I do like that a lot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think it's interesting. Because ultimately, I know that there's going to be two more. So when the whole thing revolves around, we have to try and take him down, we have to try and do this.
You're kind of waiting for okay, but what's the catch?
There has to be, because we know there's two more. The other thing is basically to facilitate this plot, they have to give Godzilla this like extra thing. They basically set up this idea that he's got a shield, and a lot of the plot is like we need to try and figure out how we can take down his shield so that we can actually damage him. And I don't really have a problem with that in theory. It's just kind of weird because I've never really heard about the shield before.
I don't know if it's somewhere else or if this is just completely new for this.
Yeah. But it was like, okay, I feel like because so much of the plot and what the characters are trying to do is revolving around this problem, and like it feels like, okay, you've tacked on this problem, so there's a plot.
No, that's fair. At least it's a natural shielding thing. It's not like, oh, Godzilla's got some tech that we have to take out.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's to do with his back and the radiation and.
Yeah, and it mentions that there's a specific there'll be a specific organ that channels it.
Yeah. But no, it's just kind of funny that it eventually it almost turns it into like another movie, like another sci-fi movie where they're trying to take down a big ship.
It does, yeah, and it's like, okay, that's the weak spot.
And it's looking for that one weak spot in the Death Star, which they may or may not show on an entire pointless movie detailing how we got plans to show the weakness of that, but.
Okay. No, I'm not taking the bait. I'm
just waiting for that Godzilla Rogue One. That'll be something we get in a few years' time. Actually, this was kind of Godzilla Rogue One when I think about it. It was a bit, yeah. Because this is how they figure it out.
Yeah.
Who would he even steal it from? Did he steal it from Rodan? Does Rodan have the plans in his cave? Like, Mothra's got some plans.
Mothra definitely had them just in case.
Well, that's the thing we don't get in this. There's no Mothra or Ghidorah or anyone like that, so I feel like we've saved some big names should they want to pop them into the next two movies.
Yeah, we got a tease of something early on.
Yeah, you see some monsters kind of like in the skyline at various points. You see there's maybe one or two you can maybe kind of catch, but there's no, even if you can catch a cameo there's no real presence of any of the other big names.
No, this is all about Godzilla in this movie.
Yeah, and I feel like given how it ends, I feel like the second movie will mostly be as well. I can see them appearing, or at least one of them appearing by the end of the second movie, but I think it'll be the third movie before it really gets into the Monster Mash side of things.
I agree, yeah.
If you will. And how do they deal with that if that does happen? Because they're already like so, we've got a small population, small survivor group, and like so many of them die in this movie trying to take down Godzilla. Like how many like are left? What can they possibly do with whoever's shows up next? Like
yeah.
It feels like humanity's on its last legs, which I guess is
it does.
part
It
of the
does.
fun. So.
And that's the sort of stuff I do like, though. I like them being like this ragtag band of, okay, no, this is kind of our last chance. You know, they're like, okay, maybe we should just settle the moon and, you know, risk runs for resources.
Yeah, I like the action is typically really good. It's the action and the style that mostly make this very watchable. I think because you don't care about the characters too much, I think there's some pacing issues in the middle.
That's true, yeah.
When they first get to the planet and they're kind of dealing with the first kind of issues they confront before they really even get to Godzilla, I think that's maybe the part where the movie kind of sags a little bit, and you kind of like you're just sort of like, oh, okay. Like if you actually develop some of the characters at this point, that would be helpful. But instead, it feels like it just quickly.
That's fair. There's again in that section, there's still ideas that I like. You know, when they're dealing with Earth, you know, okay, what's changed? What are things going on now? What's the situation? There's an atmosphere to it.
There's leaves that cut you because they're as sharp as metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's something that's developed on later as well, and hopefully gets developed further in the next couple of movies.
I would hope so, because I think that stuff's interesting. I think my other main criticism of it would be, and this is kind of going back to my main criticism of a lot of anime that I've sampled in the past, is that it's too scared to shut up for 5 minutes. Like, you know, it's okay if you have some scenes without dialogue or with little dialogue. Have some pauses in between scenes.
No, it's true. I think one of the most poignant moments is probably the return to Earth, and they look down on the planet for the first time in 20 years. Some of them for the first time ever.
Yeah, because some people are born after they left, yeah.
Yeah, and the music there is really nice, actually. I think there's a lot of good music cues in this.
There are some good music cues. It's very... it is very Japanese score.
Yeah.
Like as I was hearing it, it was making me think of Japanese video games I've played, because the music's very kind of...
I get you.
Stylistically.
It suits. I think the biggest problem in that is that there's no return of, you know, any of the classic themes.
Yeah, the Godzilla theme could do with being used.
Yeah. Hopefully they're saving it.
That'd be nice. I feel like, though, even though it was used in the first movie where Godzilla was still the villain, I feel like the Godzilla theme is actually too heroic to use in this story.
That's fair, but a twist on it would be nice. Maybe a more villainous twist on that same theme.
But so I think that's good. But yeah, like I say, I would love for it to, like, you know, calm down, let some emotional beats play out. And I think that's part of why it's hard to get a grasp on who all the characters are, because it's just that they're too scared to not keep talking, and they keep firing. And I think it's especially noticeable when it's, you know, something that's in a different language and you're reading the subtitles, because you're just constantly reading. You're just constantly reading more lines. And comparing it to a live action movie, even just specifically from Japan, I feel like, no, this is not what it's like when I'm watching a Japanese movie. There'll be lines where there needs to be lines, but there'll be quiet time when I'm just enjoying the actions and the visuals. And, you know, it almost felt like the only time that was really happening was during the actual big action set pieces, and even then there was a lot of banter over the radios and stuff. But
that was more appropriate than some of the conversations.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they were like talking about what plan, you know, constantly updating. It made sense there.
Sometimes an awkward silence when someone drops like a big, you know, like when they're debating about what to do, and like, oh yeah, we've only got 8 years left with these rations. Like, that's maybe the moment where you have some silence as they contemplate the gravity of what he's just said.
No, that's fair.
And then pick up the scene again. But instead, just quickly, you know.
Yeah.
We can't stop talking. Which actually feels very TV, because TV, I mean, not all TV now, but like back in the day, TV was like that, where you'd have to keep talking.
Yeah, it's a very network TV thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even now.
So that and the thin characters would be my main complaint. But I still enjoyed it for the most part, because it was quite pretty. I liked how Godzilla was treated, and the action was typically pretty good. But I wouldn't have said no to extending it by 10-15 minutes. Not to add any more plot, just to let everything breathe a bit more and let us maybe develop the characters just a touch and kind of get it. By the way, before we get into spoilers, I will warn you if you're going to go and watch it based on this. There is a post-credit scene, and what's funny is I got to the credits, and I was about to get up and like just turn everything off, and I was like, wait a minute, these credits have been playing for about 10-15 seconds, and it's not doing that Netflix thing where, you know, it shrinks and says, oh, watch this, or next thing's going to play, or any of that. And I'm like, that usually means there's something coming up at the end. So I skipped through, you know, in the little thumbnails, and I'm like, oh, there is something at the end. So I went to just did before it and watched it.
So what the worst part is, I let the credits play for a good solid 2 minutes before I bothered moving to stop them, and it never dawned on me that, oh, hang on, these are still here.
Yep. I mentioned that I'd watched the post-credit scene, and then Connor went back to Netflix and watched it on its own because he had not seen that yet.
The beauty of Netflix.
Yeah. So I think with that, though, we'll get into some spoilers and talk about the movie from there. So full spoilers from this point on. So they're fighting Godzilla in the second half of the movie, and it's quite fun stuff with the hover bikes, and they're going round and they're trying to distract it. They get to the weak points, and then our hero kind of jumps in and puts the EMP in his like skin, when it's down to take out the shield, and they trap it with some mountain rock that they've blew up and all the rest of it.
That's very classic Godzilla. That stuck in some rocks.
It is very classic Godzilla, and they kind of win. And they think, everything's fine, happy ending, and I'm like, okay, something's not quite right here. And someone even says, I don't think that's actually Godzilla we just killed. What do you mean by that? It's like, well, I mean, because they actually found out their estimates were wrong. It's actually been close to 20,000 years since they left.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, did Godzilla really be alive all that time? And it actually turns out he is, but
yeah, but they even say even if he is, this is exactly the same as the recordings and the readings that we had. It's too exact. Life isn't like that. It changes.
Yeah. And then you hear some rumbles, and then the presumably original Godzilla gets up, and he is huge. He is 3 times the size of the one we've been fighting. The moment
he stands up and he does the roar, the classic sound effect, and it sounds huge. I was like, no, that's the moment of the movie.
Oh yeah, my subwoofer was going nuts throughout this entire thing. Every single time he shuffled from left to right, or the tail came up,
yes,
and the whole thing was And you actually think that Haruo gets killed. He's sort of left in the rocks, and everyone has to leave him because there's a female character who kind of has to look after, because he actually gets arrested earlier on in the movie because he tries to convince everyone to turn back, and he goes to, because he's trying to stop the elderly from going down to this planet, because he thinks they're being forced, but the elderly are actually, no, we made this choice, we want to go to the planet and sort of have our final days on land, kind of thing. And then he sees the ship explode after he's arrested.
Yeah.
And there's some speculation later on that was intentional, which they never really pay off. I'm assuming that'll come back into play.
I think I'm a bit more forgiving with things like that, in where I know this is a trilogy, planned as a trilogy from the start. So it's like, okay, no, you've got time to pay these off. I don't need it all in the one movie. Yeah,
so I think that's fair enough. But he he goes in, but this woman is kind of, well, he's still handcuffed, but he's going in the mission anyway. She's charged to look after him. I thought, okay, right, so the interest in her, they're going to bond maybe over the movie, and then you almost get no scenes of them until the final fight's going down. I don't know her name. I feel that's the point of her, but they never actually did anything with her till
I think it began with an M.
Sure.
But I'm not entirely. I might be mixing that up with some other anime I'm watching at the minute.
You could be. It wasn't Matthias. He was one of the aliens, and our name definitely wasn't Martin. So
probably not an M then.
I'm not going to go along with that. But yeah, but she's like, oh no, she's all upset about it. I'm like, okay, it'd be nice if I knew who you were. So to go back to my not knowing who the characters really are, but the post-credit scene is him waking up in a cave, and there's someone there who I can only assume is someone who's been living here the entire time.
Yeah.
Well, not the entire time, but a descendant of people who are here.
So some version of humanity survived.
Yeah, because she's got white paint in her face, and she seems a little bit tribal. She's whoever's living here has been living in these conditions. So someone saved them, which is going to open up, I guess, a good bit of mythology for the next movie.
Oh, absolutely. It harks back to, again, one of the only other moments in the movie where it is quiet is where they come across the ruins of a city, and then it turns out it's just this fossilized fungus that's kind of held the shape.
Yeah, because they point out that a building wouldn't actually survive 10,000 years.
Yeah,
and it's more like the the foliage grew over the top of it, and then the fungus within just kind of maintained the shape that they grew around, and that's why it kind of looks like the city. So there's some nice ideas there. I do like that it's so far in the future that it's even the buildings couldn't have survived. It's not like we're coming back to a wasteland where you still see New York and it's just all deserted. It's no. No, this is
it's gone.
I mean, if anything, I imagine the entire climate's changed. I wonder.
Well, they mention that, don't they? Because there's all this fog that's actually being caused by the plants.
Yeah, there's all this stuff, and I wonder if the planet's actually stronger. You know, like global warming's been like doing its thing. I wonder if after 10,000 years of this climate, like if the planet's actually like stronger than ever was.
They kind of touch on it a little bit because they mention the environment will have changed. It'll,
yeah.
And I'm wondering if they're talking about how humanity wasn't there. Maybe we didn't accelerate global warming as much. Okay, maybe it kind of calmed down.
Or it got better because we weren't there to keep ruining it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
That's what you mean. Okay, right.
Yeah, it calmed down, so that it didn't get as bad.
Yeah. There's some interesting ideas in there. They don't play a super amount with it. Like I say, they're kind of mentioned once or twice, and
yeah,
they're just kind of there. But
it makes for a nice world.
Yeah, but obviously we only really get to see like one city of the planet, so I do have to wonder if like we do have like Ghidorahs and shit like in other places. Like let's say they're back in Japan for this, like
reasonable assumption.
Like all the other monsters like populating other like is this like
there's one per continent.
Yeah, is Asia the Godzilla continent, and then like Ghidorah is up in like Europe or something. I don't know. Take your pick.
Cool. They've got their own territories.
Yeah, I could see that.
Do you know what I really like how the aliens view Godzilla, because they kind of say no, this is like a punishment almost. Whenever a species kind of thinks too much of themselves, thinks that they're like this divine creation, that they're the best that there is, something like this arrives to put them in their place and kind of whittle them down and go no. The universe is better than you.
Which kind of it's almost an indicator that our lead character is too arrogant, because his whole thing's about no, we need to show we're worthy of taking our Earth back and that we are good enough to like beat him, and it's that pride that's kind of at least as far as the aliens are saying, it's that pride that got Godzilla to show up in the first place. Like
I think that's a great idea of it's because obviously this is a different version of Godzilla. For this, I like that as a concept. No, Godzilla exists to kind of bring you down a peg.
It's not actually that different from the last American movie. Like, if you think about, in that he's a creature to restore balance if there's other monsters.
No, that's true.
Like, I guess in this case you're just saying the man is the monster.
Yeah, that's a fair point actually.
He's restoring balance for Earth. Like, he cares more about nature than he does. Like, yeah, it looks like he's very destructive because he's destroying buildings and shit. But they're
the
just
planet's still thriving when they get there. Clearly.
Yeah, the buildings are just fabricated constructs. Like, he seems to be quite forgiving to the mountains and shit.
Well, and there's a whole forest that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and he would stomp all those trees if he went in there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But no, he got too big, and he went, all right, I'll go for a nap underground.
Maybe that's why he went to sleep, because he wasn't needed anymore.
Yeah, could be. They do speculate as well that maybe he goes through cycles of activity. So there's things there. There's a lot of ideas that this introduces that it doesn't get to all of them. Some of them are just touched upon, but in the next couple of movies, I'm hoping to see explored more. I'd
hope so. My worry is that it doesn't slow down, and therefore it'll just keep introducing more and more things as quickly as this.
It's possible, yeah.
Which will still be relatively entertaining, but would maybe be missing the mark in terms of being truly good.
Yeah, it's something I like in a first movie. But, I want the second and third to be paying those things off. Not just introducing new things again and again and again.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Mechagodzilla, which we got teased pretty heavily early on.
Oh, yeah, because the aliens built Mechagodzilla. And then they had
to use it.
Yeah, they had to evacuate because Godzilla was, tearing down the place. So, I mean, depending on... maybe they'll say they built it with alien materials that would survive 20,000 years, so it'll still be sitting there. Somewhere.
Could do, yeah. Maybe they'll make another one though.
Well, maybe.
The aliens are with them still.
Yeah, but the tease. That has to be a tease that they're going to pay off, right? The Mechagodzilla really existed.
So, yeah,
it has to be.
They mention it too much for it not to be.
Yeah. Here's hoping. So as much as I have reservations about various things, I did enjoy it enough that I'm into checking out number 2 when it hits.
Glad to hear it.
Why did you think I might not?
I mean, just with it inherently being an anime, there's a chance that you'll get 10 minutes into something like this and go, no, I'm out.
I wonder if I could have done that and then just bluffed my way through the review for
Oh,
whole thing.
that would have been an art.
Just like, yes, yes, yes. This, and this, and yes. And what do you think about how it ended, Connor? I just hope you describe it enough through the conversation that I'd be like, yes, well, I concur with some of that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't like that part.
No. I really hope they develop the characters a bit more in the second one, though, so that I actually get to know who they are. Because
Me too.
I feel like there's a sort of bulkier guy who's kind of like one of the soldiers who they kind of who stuck out visually a little bit more, but like I don't really know much about him.
I think this is where it suffers a little bit from shifting from an anime show to a movie, where typically in a show you will have more time to flesh out those characters. This would have gone on longer than 90 minutes. This part of the arc, I would assume.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean maybe not, but I'd have to assume.
Here's the thing, though: if it had been an anime series on Netflix, would you have convinced me to cover it on Almost Cancelled?
I might have done just with the Godzilla-ness of it.
It's called Godzilla.
Honestly, there are some anime that I think that we should check out. I'd be interested in seeing your opinion on that I think you might be into as a series. Not even like super old ones, but ones that I think you might enjoy this. I'd be down for it. I'd be down to, just even if it was just a first episode for you to see how much you hate it. There can be a series of, does Peter hate this anime? Yes.
Episode 2. Yes. Next anime. Yes.
Yeah, no. I started Devilman Crybaby, which is a new Netflix one from I think earlier this month. Oh, don't try that. You'll hate it. You'll hate that one, like with a passion.
I
don't even know if I like it yet. It's kind of out there.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Oh dear. So shall we rate?
Yeah, we could do that.
Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters.
I think I'm going to give it a solid 7. It's pretty enjoyable.
I'm tempted to agree with the 7.
But
I don't know if my problem with characters, which I think is a legitimately big problem.
It is.
I don't know if I can give it a 7 with that in mind.
That's fair. I think for me, the style, the atmosphere, the action fun kind of outweighs it just enough. It's not a high 7, don't get me wrong. It's kind of just about into 7.
Yeah. It's kind of reminded me in a weird way of Dune, the David Lynch movie, where I like the style, I like how it looks, I like the atmosphere of it, but the characters are just kind of exist for the sake of the story. But then I also I give that an 8 because I like the style in that enough that I shot for the moon with that one.
Yeah, I think you overdid that one. I'll be honest.
And I stand by it. I love that. And the music, that main theme that comes in when he's riding the big worm. He rides a big worm.
That's you say that and it sounds like the best movie ever, but it's not.
And Denis Villeneuve is going to do a Dune movie. We'll see how he copes with it.
Hoping for the best.
Yeah.
I feel like you learnt how to say his name at some point.
I did.
You were pretty close, I think.
There was a YouTube video showing us how to pronounce his name. I was curious because it was such a weird name. That even Dennis was wrong. It's Denis.
Yeah. I like that you were that wrong before.
Everyone was that wrong. I'm not the only one.
There's only one S, and one N, and one S, right?
Sure. Whatever.
I don't know.
Denis?
I just look at that and go, I don't know how to say that, but I'm pretty sure it's not Dennis.
I'll just pick the closest thing that I know of.
Just go for it
to fit with it. But no, it's Denis.
Yes.
Oh God. Anyway, so I think I'll go with 7. It's a style over substance 7 though.
Yeah.
Strictly style, no substance for me in this one. But I'll give it the 7 on that basis. So that is Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. By all means, check it out. It's on Netflix. You can go and do that yourselves. Let us know what you think of it in the comments and stuff. Like, subscribe, the usual jazz. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. There'll be a link in the description, as well as some other stuff. So that is us. That's another successful Jigowatts. Don't get too used to this frequency of Jigowatts. This is happening a lot recently, but
they're just kind of happening because we keep happen to be watching movies.
Yeah, it may still happen for another month or so, because I know we're both going to be catching up in some Oscar movies. So
it kind of is. Once Netflix starts hitting us with shows regularly again, this will probably die down a touch.
Yeah, but we're in a fortunate place right now. But all the Kôbun's coming in a couple of weeks. Once that starts, I feel like the random extra movie reviews are probably going to dwindle. But regardless, here we are. So that is Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. Check it out. But thank you very much for watching or listening. Once again, we always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.